Well, good morning, Hope. Today's devotion's on Psalm 2. Psalm 2 is sort of like an introductory psalm, like Psalm 1. Psalm 1 was focusing on the blessed man and the wicked man, and how the blessed man is the one who follows the Lord's commands and rejoices and finds joy in him and is like a planted tree. Here in Psalm 2, it's also kind of the reason we say it's like an introductory psalm is that it also talks about the sovereignty of God. And the rest of the Psalms give praise in light of that, speak about God's sovereignty. When you read about David's Psalms in his midst of troubles and desire for deliverance, all of his joy is rooted in the sovereignty of God. So Psalm 2, again, it's the main focus here is God's providence, his sovereign rule over all things despite the rebellion of the world. And so Psalm 2 can be broken down into about four equal parts. The first part is the narrator in verses 1 through 3, where it says, "Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us." So clearly, the anointed one, that is Jesus Christ. Against the Lord, that's Yahweh. Remember, capital Lord in the Old Testament is the English translation of the Hebrew word Yahweh. So it's against Yahweh and against his anointed, which is Christ. So the narrator is setting the scene. Why do the rulers rage? Why do they plot in vain? And I think we see that, and you see that throughout history. You see that today. Nations, raging rulers trying to usurp the rule of God, trying to get God out of our lives and just trying to rule autonomously, but they do so in vain. So verses 4 through 6, this is part 2 of Psalm 2, and the shifts from the narrator to God the Father, to Yahweh speaking. And he says, it lets us know by saying, "He who sits in the heavens laughs. The Lord holds them in derision. Then he will speak to them in his wrath and terrify them in his fury, saying, As for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill." So here we see the setup of God up in heaven. He's just laughing. He mocks them at their efforts to free themselves from his reign, from his influence, from his power. But then he speaks to them in his wrath, in his judgments, and he terrifies them in his fury by saying, "Look, you do what you want, but I've set my king, I've set Jesus Christ on Zion and Jerusalem on my hill. He will reign." And then part 3 kicks in, verses 7 through 9, and this is where Jesus, the Son of God, where he speaks. And he says, "I will tell the decree. The Lord, or Yahweh, said to me, You are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage, and the ends of the earth your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron and dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel." So here we have Jesus Christ being told by the Father that, look, all that you see, all the nations, all these kings are plotting against me. Ultimately, they're all going to be under your rule. I will set them below you. You will rule over them. And you will do so with a rod of iron. And your judgment and your rule will be powerful. It cannot be stopped. They will break before you like clay, like a potter's vessel. There's nothing that they can do. There's nothing in their power to resist your rule. And then in verses 10 through 12, the fourth part, we go back to the narrator, the person that we started with in the first few verses, where he says, "Now therefore," right? So this is like the lessons that we need to learn, right? "Now therefore, O kings, be wise. Be warned, O rulers of the earth," right? These are the same kings, the same rulers back in verse 2. So we come back to them, narrator saying, hey, be warned, be wise. And this is the lesson. "Serve the Lord, serve Yahweh with fear, and rejoice with trembling," right? It kind of sounds like Paul, where Paul says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling, right? And then he ends it with, "Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish in the way, for his wrath is quickly kindled. Blessed are all who take refuge in him." In other words, worship the Son, give him homage, unless he become angry and you perish, meaning he judged you for your rebellion, for your rage against him, because his wrath is quickly kindled. He is a patient God, but he will judge, and he will judge rightly. And blessed are all who take refuge in him. And that echoes Psalm 1. Blessed is the man who delights in the law of the Lord. It's the same thing. Blessed are all who take refuge in Christ. So that is Psalm 2. Prayerfully and hopefully, Lord willing, I'll have another one out for you all tomorrow. All right. Have a nice day. God bless.